Okay, so now we're back on track with the letters. And this question is about post-secondary education. So although the federal government is one of the largest sources of funding for post-secondary education, Canada is the only OECD country without any national oversight of higher education. Currently, there is no mechanism or body in place to ensure that federal funds transferred to the provinces for post-secondary education are actually invested in colleges or universities. Canada currently has no national standards for quality or affordability. Both the Canadian Federation of Students and the Canadian Association of University Teachers recommend the adoption of a Post-Secondary Education Act, accompanied by binding agreements with the provinces that would establish conditions for federal post-secondary education transfers. These agreements would commit the provinces to upholding the principles of affordability, comprehensiveness, and academic freedom. In return for upholding these principles, provincial governments would receive increased and stable funding from the federal government. So the question to the candidates is, would you and your party support the establishment of a Post-Secondary Education Act as outlined above? So we are going to go to Gordon Earle first.
Excellent question. And it's interesting to note that the NDP already has a Post-Secondary Education Act. So all you have to do to get that act in place would be to elect an NDP federal government. And we hope you'll do that on May 2nd. We will make post-secondary education more affordable by directly attacking the skyrocketing tuition costs with a designated $800 million transfer to the provinces and territories to lower tuition fees, as per our NDP Post-Secondary Education Act. We will increase the funding in the Canada Student Grants Program by $200 million a year, targeting accessibility for Aboriginal, disabled, and low-income students in particular. And finally, we will raise the education tax credit from $4,800 per year to $5,760 per year to help with the increasing education costs. And I could talk more about the importance of education, but I see the yellow card is flashing at me. But I just want to say that we've always cherished education as one of the basic tenets of our society, because we must invest in our youth. We must make sure that they have the education and the tools to make a productive way in our society. Thank you very much.
So next we have Derek Wells.
Thank you. With respect to your preamble and committing to a Post-Secondary Education Act, I'm not prepared to do that today. That's an issue that I think we'd have to research and make a decision on. What I do agree with in your preamble were the call for national standards. I think that's important. And that money transferred should be directed for post-secondary. I know it's a general transfer now, but I understand where the universities are coming from, and I understand why the concern is there with the raising tuitions. Our position as a party is, if you get the grades, you get to go. One thing we need to understand, university tuition has increased 20% in the last 5 years. The average student debt, average for a graduating student, is $26,000. $26,000 average student debt. That's unacceptable. 2/3 of the parents out there feel that they will not be able to afford to send their kids to university. Those are stats that are not acceptable. So part of our platform, part of our what we call our family plan, talks about a number of things strictly directed to education. The new Learning Passport to help families pay for college or university with a $4,000 tax-free, non-repayable assistance to every student. Every high school student is going to get $1,000 a year put in their account for 4 years. It could be as much as $1,500 for low-income families. That is going to go a long way in assisting these students, get that head start in going to university. But it is just, on university, college, any type of post-secondary training, it doesn't have to be university. And also, I think it's critical to go along with that is the early childhood learning and care. We have to give our most vulnerable, our young kids, an early start. It is absolutely critical that we start when they're young and invest in our young children. Thank you.
And finally, we have Kris MacLellan.
This is of some particular importance to me. I would probably guess that I'm the only candidate on the ballot who still has a student loan to pay off. But post-secondary education is indeed important to all Canadians. And it's important that we make sure that it's something that's accessible to all Canadians. Most people who attend post-secondary education are from a middle-class background, often Caucasian, and the Green Party would work to ensure that our system is targeting those who have the lowest participation rates, particularly low-income Canadians, the disabled, first-generation, and Aboriginal citizens. This is also a good opportunity for me to refer back to the question to dispel a few myths about the Green Party. I would hope that that many of you aren't scared off of me and vote for the Green Party and the thought that you're going to end up with, you know, a pinko air hugger who is going to force feed you all bicycles. We're all here to work together, and were we to be proposed or to see a proposition for a well-researched and thoughtful post-secondary education system on a federal level, then that's something that we would, I'm sure, not be opposed to. And that a vote for a Green member of Parliament and a Green voice in Parliament is a vote for alternative points of view that will hopefully make the final result of such legislation better. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is about Canada Post. So Canada Post recently signed a contract to hand over all of its call center work to the private sector. Call center workers provide up-to-date information on a wide range of topics, including rates, delivery standards, parcel and letter tracing, and much more. When privatization goes ahead, these services will be offered by workers with less training, lower salaries, and mediocre working conditions. Privatization hurts the public good by putting profit ahead of Canadians' needs. We want to keep public services public. So the question is, what is your position on the privatization of public services? And so first we will go to Kris MacLellan.
The public sector in Canada is a very vibrant part of our society. I myself was a student as recently as last year of public administration at Dalhousie University, and I felt I was able to get a certain insight into the culture of people who work in the public service, and it's something that all Canadians should be proud of. Public servants recognize that they are motivated by the knowledge that the work they do is in the greater public interest. These hard-working people are far too often stigmatized in the media as being something of a second tier to private sector workers in the Canadian economy. This couldn't be farther from the truth. Public servants are the reason that we are able to enjoy this great country in the way that we are, and it's something that we take for granted, and not to mention that it's all done in 2 languages. Preservation of the services Canadians enjoy is paramount, particularly in an age of new pressures towards digitalization and other rapid changing factors that affect the Canadian economy. Privatization sounds like a great idea. It promises faster service and more efficient service, but in many cases this has proven not to be the case. And if this is the way that we're going to end up with a lot more billion-dollar boondoggles on our hands. Thank you.
Next we have Gordon Earle.
The history of privatization has always shown that private companies, corporations, their bottom line is the profit. And quite often, in order to gain that profit, they cut jobs, they cut services, and you get an inferior type of delivery of service. So we would certainly not favor the privatization of something such as the Canada Post and other public services. We feel that the quality of service that's been delivered through the public service sector has been A1, and if it needs to be improved, then you work on improving it. You don't just farm it out to the private industry. So it hasn't worked. In a lot of cases, we see where sometimes the public sector is even making money, and then they farm something out to the private sector to get rid of it, and things just go downhill from there. So we would certainly support good quality public service and build in the necessary resources to keep those services at a high level. Thank you.
And finally, we have Derek Wells.
Yeah, thank you. Again, the preamble talked about Canada Post. The question is really, I think, more general and talking about public services generally. And my answer to that is that no, I would not be in favor of privatization of quality public services. We do know, again, we go back to the agendas, the conservative agendas, the downsize government, to reduce it to basically foreign affairs and defense. I mean, we do know that that is sort of where they would like to take this. But we don't believe that, and I don't think anyone around this, at this table, it's unfortunate we don't have a fourth person here, but around this table right now, I think none of us believe that. We believe as liberals that government should be there to help people. We need a professional, highly skilled public service to do that. We have a professional, highly skilled public service. We have a highly dedicated public service, one that's been, unfortunately, over the last year or so, abused quite badly. But they are professionals. They take their jobs very seriously. And it's always been my position, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Thank you.